So today's vlog's a little bit different. You're probably used to seeing me doing Pilates and being out with the kids at the weekend when we're out walking and out in the fresh air and just enjoying ourselves. So if you've been watching those, brilliant, thank you so much. But this one's a little bit different, and I wanted to maybe reach out to people who have either been through the same or going through the same thing as I've been through over the last 20 something years. I'm now 38. And I just thought if I could make this video and it could help maybe just one person to feel reassured or to feel a little bit better, then it's worth it, right? So when I was 15 years old, so going back 23 years now, because I'm now 38, obviously had a great childhood. Growing up was amazing. We got to do so much growing up. We would dance, we would horse ride, we would be out as a family. You know, my mum and dad really made sure that we spent time together. We were always together as a family, and yeah, really happy childhood growing up. And when I was about 15, I started noticing things that were changing. And at the time when you're 15, you're at an age where things are changing anyway. So it was things like I was getting you know, quite severe sort of, we put it down to teenage spots, just across my head here and down and across my cheeks. And again, we just kind of thought, oh, it's just growing up, it is what it is, you know, and it would upset me, it would get me down a bit, but you kind of just expect it when you're a teenager. So my mum had a friend who was a beautician at the time, and I remember her coming around and putting this sort of green stuff on my face to try and help calm it down, and nothing really worked. We tried a few different things, a few products that were out there on the market for skin irritations and things like that, and nothing really worked. And then it was the same year that I'd been on holiday with a really good friend of mine and her family, and we'd been to Portugal, and it was the best holiday, you know, at 15, 16 years old. And I remember I used to get a really good suntan. Growing up as a kid, we'd go abroad on holiday and I'd get a good tan. I remember this one year that I went away with my friend that instead of my skin tanning, I kind of got these really weird red, we called it streaky bacon. We thought it was hilarious, all the way down my legs and onto my feet, and it was just strips of red and strips of white. So you can imagine, I mean, it was comical, but we just put it down to, I'd missed the suntan lotion, hadn't put it on properly, and it had kind of just gone a bit weird. So again, something we just kind of laughed off, put down to, oh, Sarah doesn't know how to put a suntan lotion on. And you know, and it was, that's how I deal with a lot of things. I've got a great sense of humour and nothing really bothers me. So it was like, oh, okay, whatever, it's fine. But that same year that all of this was going on, I had noticed small sort of patches of my hair falling out as well. I used to have really long, thick black hair, like jet black hair, and always had really thick long hair and loved it. And when I noticed my hair started falling out, I was almost too embarrassed to say anything to anybody, so I didn't want to tell my mum, I didn't want to tell my dad, so I didn't even tell my big sister. I just kind of, I don't even know how I was feeling at the time. It was just anxiety. I was scared of what was going on. I didn't know what was happening, and these patches of hair kept falling out, and I kept almost measuring them to see if they were getting bigger, and I was doing it all in secret in my bedroom. And it got to one night, I can't remember what time of year it was now, but it got to this one night, and my mum was meant to be going away for the weekend, and I completely broke down to her really late at night, and I went into my bedroom and showed her, and I just said, this has been happening, I don't know what it is. And I was broken. I was absolutely broken, because I couldn't logically think of why my hair would be falling out, or, you know, why I'd be feeling like this. So first of all, we decided that, you know, we'd go and see a doctor and see if he knew what it was and if it was just hormones or whatever. So went to the local GP, and he said, unfortunately, I can't give you an answer. I don't know what would be causing this. I don't know what it is. You need to be referred. But for me personally, what I would do, I would actually go private, because I'm not sure how long this referral is going to take, and I really don't know what it is. And I always remember his advice. He said, I'll give you a letter and you can go private if you're comfortable with that and you want to speed up the process. We can do that, because he could obviously see how physically upset I was and how worried we were about what it was. In between the time of seeing my GP and seeing a private specialist, I remember my hair was getting really bad and it was really getting me down. And at this point, I'd just started college as well. So it was always like a new place, new people. You're at an age when everything's so important, including your personal image is so important to you. Probably not so much as it is now with social media and everything else, because obviously we didn't have social media back then, but it was still a really, really big part of growing up and being accepted, and just always having beautiful hair and being concerned that I'd have to kind of hide the patches with the way I'd wear my hair, or, you know, so it wasn't the way I wanted to wear it. I didn't think it looked nice. So all of this was going on, very materialistic, but at that age, that was all I was worried about. That was my only concern, was the fact that I had to cover up these patches, because I was too scared of people seeing it, asking me what it was, and I couldn't answer the question. And I didn't know if I was ill. I didn't know. We didn't know anything at this point. So I remember my mum taking me to a hair clinic, it was called, and it was claimed to be a Harley Street clinic. And looking back at the time now, I think, God, you know. So we went in there and they did an assessment on my scalp and on my skin, because obviously I still had this big rash on my face as well. And they said, yeah, we've got something that will fix it, and it's going to cost £1,500 for a bottle of shampoo, and I think about the same for the bottle of conditioner, but it will sort it out. Okay, so we're talking £3,000 for some shampoo and conditioner, and actually at the time, I wanted to buy it. I was 16. I wanted something to fix this problem, and being sensible, my mum, we came out of there, and she just said, no, I'm not comfortable with this. We need to see a specialist. And I remember saying to mum, I want to die. I hate this. This is so, it was just too much for me at 16 to have to deal with. I suppose primarily the image thing of having my hair falling out, the image of the rash on my face, and on top of all this, I started to feel not great. Again, and I put that down to just being so down on myself about this, and that's what I put it down to. I was always tired. I was achy and fluey, and just felt rubbish. And I just, again, put it down to the fact that that I was just down on myself, and that's what I put it down to. Anyway, so really, really low points for me they were, but at the same time, all of the time that this was happening, I used to ride horses, and I think one of the biggest things that helped me through all of this time was the fact that when I was at the stables, when I was at the yard, which was all the time, I was always there, because I didn't want to be anywhere else. I couldn't be anywhere. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to, socialise with people. So I used to spend all my time at the stables, and when I was there, it didn't matter. Nothing mattered when I was there, because I could go out riding. I could, just be around my horse, and nothing else mattered. And I think that was probably a really, really big part of me being able to deal with this, looking back now. The fact that I could be there and I could be okay with myself, and maybe not worry so much that I didn't know what was going on, and that I didn't have an answer for it, and I didn't, I couldn't explain it, and no one else seemed to be able to explain it either. And I think for me that was a huge, almost like a release for me to be able to be there and not think about anything else. So all of this time, bearing in mind I'm still 16, at college, not really sure where my life's going, but at this point not even thinking about the future, just thinking about the now. So we got an appointment through to see this doctor, this specialist, and he, it was almost instant as I went in and explained what had been happening and what had been going on. It was almost an instant reaction that he knew. He knew what it was. He had to go and do tests, but he knew what it was. And I remember going in there, and he took some swabs of my scalp, and he investigated my scalp, and he looked at it, he looked at the rash, and there and then he said, I believe I know what this is. I believe it's a condition called lupus. And systemic lupus erythematosus is actually the full name, so I've got systemic lupus. And he said, so what we're going to do more tests, we're going to do skin biopsies, and we're going to get a definite answer, and from there on we can move forward with what we need to do, whether there's treatment or whatever else. So I actually came away from there feeling quite positive that he knew what it was and he could fix it and everything would be fine, and then I could just carry on my life. And that was my 16-year-old head saying to me, that's what's going to happen, that's what we're going to do, and it's all going to be fine. So we left there with an answer, which was what we went for in the first place. So that was fab. Over the next sort of, I'd say 12 months really, maybe 18 months, first of all, I went for a skin biopsy. Another funny story. My mum took me, and I had, the rash had actually spread to behind my ear as well. So that's where they did the skin biopsy. And I remember lying down, and my mum was in the same room, and they have to, if you've had a skin biopsy, you'll know that they have to slice almost like an eyelet shape, like an oval shape, out of the skin, and they send it away to be tested, or whatever they do. And I remember lying there, and obviously I can't see what they're doing, and my mum stood there watching, and they started cutting my skin, and I just remember someone saying to my mum, are you okay? Are you okay? And then my mum left the room, and my mum admitted to me that she felt like she was going to pass out, just seeing them cut into the skin. My mum's not very good with stuff like that, a bit squeamish. But yeah, so they did the skin biopsy, sent that off, and again I went to see another consultant, and they confirmed it was lupus. They confirmed obviously that all the symptoms, everything was lupus. Now I know now, looking back, that lupus is really hard to diagnose, and I was super lucky to get a diagnosis so quickly, because the normal amount, the average amount of time to diagnose lupus is between 5 to 7 years. So lupus is an autoimmune disease which the body, the simple way to explain it is the body's immune system, so your immune system that you've got that's in place to fight outside infections and outside parasites or whatever it is, your body fights that infection, gets rid of it, and then you can carry on. With lupus, my body hasn't got that fighting mechanism to fight the outside infection. What my body does, it turns on itself. So my body starts to attack my organs, and the skin being one of the biggest organs, mine showed itself in the skin. So my body was attacking itself. It was attacking my skin, attacking my scalp, which was making the hair fall out, and it could attack any organ in the body. So it could be heart, lungs, kidney, liver, any organ in the body, and the blood. So it travels around in the blood. So when I first got the diagnosis, obviously the first thing you do is you look it up. And I think more so at the time it was more, not so much internet, but more books and reading about it and finding out information, going to the library and just figuring out what the information was about what they knew about it, what they didn't, you know, what the research was for, what the medication was that could solve it. In my case, I knew that obviously you'll cure it and it'll be fine. And I think not just for myself reading about it, but also for my family, I think it was quite obvious then that we realised how serious the condition actually can be. And the fact that if I hadn't been diagnosed so quickly, maybe it would have been a different story. It would have been a different outcome. So yeah, so the average time to diagnose lupus was 5 to 7 years. Now, in those 5 to 7 years, a lot of stories that I read about, a lot of cases where lupus mimics other conditions. So, for example, I get what I thought was childhood arthritis. It's actually part of lupus. So arthritis, like I say, hair loss, which can also be put down to alopecia. So it really mimics lots and lots of different illnesses. You know, you might just have a permanent flu-like state. And again, they start treating you with antibiotics first because they think it's the flu. It could be extreme fatigue was another thing that I completely wiped me out. It was something that hit me like a ton of bricks when I was 15, and I would go to the stables for the day and I would come home, say 3 o'clock, and I remember getting into bed at 3 o'clock and not waking up till the next day. Literally not eating, just completely wiped out. But then the next day waking up and feeling like I hadn't had any sleep. So I used to wake up and think, I'm actually exhausted, and I would be physically exhausted. I'd have a temperature, I would have these flu-like symptoms, I'd have night sweats, there'd be so many things, but none of it was really, they were all individual things that until you sit down with a specialist and say, this is what's been happening, and you kind of put it all together, because at the time I was putting it down to, oh, I'm just tired. I've been doing too much, I'm just tired. Or I've caught a cold. Or my joints are hurting. Oh, it's because I went riding and it was raining. I mean, all of these things that you just make an excuse for, that once that information is pulled together, that's when the specialist can make their diagnosis becomes a bit easier. So I was super lucky that in those few months, I had my diagnosis. So from there on in, I continued horse riding, I continued college, my hair, it took a while, but it did start to get better. And at this point, I believe they'd put me on a short course of steroids, and just to try and boost suppress the immune system, to stop the immune system attacking itself, to give my body chance to sort of come back to homeostasis, to kind of a level playing field, if you like. And initially that was great and it worked. My hair started coming back. The rash eventually went, which was lovely, because obviously at that age, self-image is a massive thing anyway. Excuse me. So everything seemed to settle down, and at that point I thought, naive looking back now, but I was 17 then, and that's it, I'm fixed, I'm fine now, I can just carry on and everything's going to be great. I kind of knew that wasn't the case, and I was very aware that SLE, lupus, there is no cure for it. There is no cure, and I will always have this condition, and I will always have to have it monitored. And I knew that, I absolutely knew that, but I was 17 and I had ambitions, I had dreams, I had plans, I had so much that I wanted to do, that I almost maybe in denial a bit of it in general, the fact that I would just pretend I didn't have it. I would pretend that I didn't have lupus and that I was okay and I could carry on regardless, and if I didn't think about it, then it wouldn't affect me. That was my 17-year-old self. And you know what? It worked for a while. It really, really did work for a while, because my body had settled down and I was just carrying on. I was having fun. I was being a 17-year-old, you know, going out and getting into clubs that we probably shouldn't have been getting into, you know, just having fun with my friends. And I did have amazing fun. It was so good. I then left college. I'd actually studied, weirdly, I'd studied media studies, I'd studied English A-level and photography. And if you've seen the previous video with me and Nicola, my best friend, you'll see why I studied those things. So you'd have to go back and check that video out. So yeah, I left college, had a great time there, left college, and I got a little admin job in a car sales place for a little while, and kind of just to figure out what I wanted to do. At this time, my health was really good, and I was thinking about my future and about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So, 18, I auditioned, I got the job, and I went off to Blackpool to be a dancer.